Evening, everyone. Why do I keep losing at trading? If you've ever asked yourself this question, if you're still asking yourself this question, then this webinar is for you, because it is not your strategy that is the problem. It's what happens after you have a loss. It's the escalation that happens and how those losses pile up. And I think you know what I'm talking about. They pile up, and before you know it, you've got another blown account. So we're going to go through that in this webinar, and we're going to look at what's going on and how to fix it. So, first of all, the misdiagnosis of what the problem is. It's not your strategy. It's not that your edge has lost. It's not that you've lost your edge. It's not that your strategy suddenly doesn't work. Yes, the market has times when it's ranging, maybe your strategy is more for trending. These are just rules that you need to put in place. Your strategy should be very clear on when it works best and when it doesn't, okay? But this is not the reason these losses are piling on. I know you believe it is, and so the answer is usually to look for another strategy to go and learn more. But the problem here is not an intellectual problem, and so it's not something that can be solved by learning more. I know we all wish it was. We all started trading wishing that it was an intellectual activity, because then we could just learn enough and eventually you'd know everything and then you'd be great. But it is not an intellectual activity. So the reason those losses are piling on is because of what happens after the first loss. And what's happening is an escalation of losses. It's basically a tsunami of losses and bad behavior that comes after the first one or two losses. And that's what we want to dive into today, and that's what we need to solve, because once you can solve that, you can actually start trading at quite a calm, managed level. You don't have this chaotic, just out of control behavior that comes out and destroys your trading. So I want to dive into that today and really tackle the real problem, which is the escalation of those losses. So before we get started, we need to talk about a psychological truth. And here's the real truth, okay? Nobody teaches trading psychology because it's hard to teach. And why is it so hard? Because psychology, by the nature of it, is your brain making you believe certain things to keep you safe. It's actually a very natural biological response of our brain. And so that's the psychology that we're trying to deal with and understand. But because we're impacted by our brains trying to keep us safe, we also believe what our brains are telling us. And so it's very hard for us to first see the real issues, because our brain is trying to tell us it's something else. And secondly, it's very hard for us as humans to see our own, I don't want to call them flaws, but our own behaviors. It's very, very hard. And that's why when you have, more serious issues, you need to see a therapist, you need to go and see somebody, because they help you understand yourself better. That's how it works. And so with trading, as struggling traders, we're just given these tidbits and tips and advice and guides, and all the information's there, but it's very hard to implement because of these two things. One is your brain is telling you other things, and two, it's very hard for you to see yourself and to see yourself honestly. And that's why working with a coach like me is needed for some of these trading psychology and mindset pieces. But you can also go it yourself. And that's what I'm going to give you today, is an actual structure, things to implement. But it's important to understand why this is so hard for us to see as humans. It's not your fault. It's just how we are as humans and how we're wired. The nice thing about all of this is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. You're not going to go backwards. It's like it's a one-off thing, okay? But you've got to break through that barrier and fight your brain, because your brain is going to tell you it's other things. So let's already look at the misdiagnosis. Your brain probably for weeks, months, years, for some of us, I was one of the years people, our brains kept telling us, just learn more, you need to learn more. It's an intellectual thing, you need to learn more, because it's not comfortable. Our brains don't want to tell us, stop learning more, you need to kind of address yourself, because that's uncomfortable, it's not safe. So your brain is telling you these falsehoods, not because it's trying to sabotage you, but it's because it's trying to keep you safe. But by keeping you safe, it is actually sabotaging your trading. So with that in mind, and that's an uncomfortable thing to realize, or to be told, and you may not believe it yet. It now needs to kind of seep in, and you need to start believing that, because then you can start questioning everything. Okay, you can't just follow your instinct on this, because your brain is trying to keep you safe, and so it will tell you non-truths. So that's what we're up against. Okay, so just park your disbelief for a moment, and let's just finish the webinar. Take notes, because this is what's going to fix your cascading, escalating losses and your blown accounts. Don't know how many blown accounts you're on, but I blew 10 accounts before I just paused, and I myself said something's not right. Why? And I did a very, very deep dive on myself. It was very difficult, but there's a point in the road where you have to go, something's not right, something's not working, and you need to take a hard left off this freeway of misinformation, and you need to start doing the right stuff. So your brain, as soon as you start trading, it's uncertainty in the trade. It doesn't know, will this be a winner, will this not be a winner? Your brain hates that. It hates uncertainty. It perceives it as danger. And when your brain perceives something as danger, it doesn't know if this is just what kind of danger it is, but it could be danger that could kill you. And so it reacts the same way. It doesn't differentiate. Okay. And what this brain is, I call it your lizard brain. It's a part of your brain that was very developed when we lived in caves thousands of years ago, and it for a good purpose. It kept people alive. That's why we're still here. But as we developed, our front brains, that's the cortex where our logical processing works, grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And so this lizard brain is still there, but it's smaller. But when it's activated, it is so powerful, it will override, like all the blood from your logical brain, blood rushes to this lizard brain, and literally you're a lizard. When that's triggered, you're a lizard. You can't think straight, you're running on instincts, and your brain doesn't know what's going on. It just wants to keep you safe. That's what you're up against, and that's what's happening when we're trading. I know it's insane, because it's not dangerous, it's not going to kill us, but your lizard brain doesn't know that, because it's a lizard brain. Okay, so it's this danger and this flight to safety that's causing all these issues. That's why you close trades early, because it wants to give you the relief of not having that danger of not knowing if this is going to work or not. So it sees a bit of green and it just closes the trade for you. It's why you move your stop loss, because as long as that stop loss is not hit, you haven't been wrong yet. And so your lizard brain can keep you in a losing trade for a very long time, because it doesn't want you to have that pain, that danger of acknowledging that trade just didn't work. Everything else, revenge trading, FOMO trading, it's all for relief. It's all to get you out of that danger feeling. And as soon as you have that relief, you're sending messages to your brain that says, thank you, that was great. I'm now back to certainty. I know this place. I know losses. I know blown accounts. I understand where I'm at. I'm a loser. Can't trade. But there's a certainty, and I feel very safe here. That's what you're telling your brain. So next time it just does it the same. I hope you can see what the answer here is. We just have to train our brains. We have to regulate it so that it doesn't react so badly. Okay? If you've ever overcome a fear of something, I used to have a real fear of flying. That plane, and I've done a lot of traveling. So, 1 year when I was doing my overseas, like traveling as a young person, I took 22 flights in 1 year. Now, for a scared flyer, that's a lot. And it's the sweaty palms, the every sound of the aeroplane. I'm like, what is that? You're just on edge all the time, and everything is just and it's very triggering. It's very it just happens, and it's very intense fear. Now, I'm not a nervous flyer anymore, so I regulated my brain. I trained my brain to be more calm. And how did I do that? I actually watched a lot. I think I've watched every single air crash investigation episode, because I needed to logically understand what sounds or how airplanes work, how the cockpit works. So I take a lot of the things I've brought into method trading, my system, is actually from pilots and that system and pilot error, because pilots actually have the same issue that traders have when things go wrong. They need a system around them, a safety net that manages the lizard brain from just because when things go wrong, a pilot could die. So their lizard brain is just going to explode, right? And you want that pilot to be cool, calm, and collected in that moment to just do the right things. And that's why they've got checklists. That's why they do training. They don't just say, oh, something goes wrong, pilot, you just do your thing, do whatever you think is right. The pilot will not be able to think, and they've studied this in lots of air crash investigations. Now, I use the same system in my system, but the point here is that I worked at training my brain to not associate every little sound on an aeroplane with we're going to crash. I regulated my brain, and so now I can fly in comfort. I don't worry about it at all. So I went from that to no problems. I've also done it with trading. I also used to take a lot of FOMO trades, revenge trade, blown accounts. One loss would escalate into 100 losses. I've done it all, and I now do none of it. I trade in a very calm, methodical way. I trade in a profitable way, in a consistent way. I know that this is possible. So just because you're triggered at the moment, just because you're trading at the moment is not working, you're getting hijacked by these feelings, doesn't mean you can't solve this, okay? So it's very solvable, but you have to train your brain, and you can't just tell your brain once, like, stop doing that. That's why these promises don't work. Okay, I promise myself tomorrow I'm not going to do anything wrong. Boom, first thing, wrong. You can't just tell your brain once off, because your brain is, that lizard brain wants to keep you alive. And it's like, you don't know anything. I'm going to hijack your entire system when I need to keep you alive. That's what it does. It doesn't allow you to give it feedback in the moment. And so we slowly have to train our brains. It's a slow process. It will take about 3 months. Now, if you do it completely by yourself, it could take longer, possibly a year, possibly 2 years, but you have to consistently train your brain. Okay. And just knowing that you need to do this is such a huge step. Most traders, 95%, fail. They quit because they never uncover this information. They never understand it. They never understand what's really going on. They quit while they're still chasing strategies, chasing intellectual information. And here's the other kicker is, the more knowledge you get, the worse this problem becomes. Why? Just like training your brain to not be so, out of control and emotional and triggered, you can train your brain to believe that you now know more, so you should do even better. So your brain is even on higher alert. As soon as something's not seems a little bit dangerous, it fires up even faster because you've trained it now to go, I'm going to solve this through studying more, spending more time with the charts, learning more strategies, learning more indicators, learning, and your brain thinks, great, it's going to be safer. So it's more triggered by uncertainty, by these events. It's a bit back to front, isn't it? It's a bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach, okay? So it might take you a few days to just think these things through, but once you go, oh, actually, that is how it works, you can start making the changes. So what we need to do today, let's get practical now, is we need a system, a protocol, an action, rules for what happens after a loss. You see, most strategies will tell you your entry, your stop loss, your target. Lovely. But you need rules. And when you work with me, I will tell you when I do a deep dive into your strategy needs rules beyond that. And this is a very important one, is rules around what to do after a loss. But you also need rules for when not to trade, what times to trade, what times not to trade, what to look for entries, what to look for that exclude you from entries. Your strategy needs to be far more robust with rules around the simple basic rules. And this is one of them. This is a really important one. What to do after a loss. So here's the framework, the practical framework. Take some notes. Until you have trained your brain not to be so triggered, and the fastest and best way to do that is to contact me and come do some coaching with me, because I will sort this out for you in 3 months. But the other best way to do this, until you have calmed your lizard brain down, is that you have to take the approach of just do it. This becomes part of a ritual that you just do. Doesn't matter how you feel about it, doesn't matter what your brain's telling you about it. You just do this. It's a little bit like brushing your teeth. You just do it. It's a bit like, I sometimes equate it to religions, which we can take quite seriously. And I'm not going to get into religions too much, but if you've ever been affiliated with a religion or something where there's rituals involved, I don't know what that might be. Sometimes it's sports, sometimes it's another activity, a group where rituals are involved. But the easiest way to see rituals is in religion. So if you are Catholic, you walk into the church and you do the cross like that. It's just a ritual. You just do it. There's other rituals that go with other religions. So if you know your religion, if you've got a different religion, you know these rituals, things you just do because it's part of the religion and you take it seriously. You just do it because you believe in it. Okay? It's not just doing it because it's got no meaning or anything. You do it because you believe in it. There's meaning there. You need to, I'm not saying that trading should replace your religion, but you need to kind of, as close as you can to that kind of, seriousness about something like a religion, you need to take your trading that seriously. And there are rituals around your trading. This becomes a ritual. You just do it. Doesn't matter how you feel. Doesn't matter if you're logically going, oh, I think I can just skip it this time. No, you do it. Step 1, get a pen, write it down. You need to expect the loss. So how you do this is you're going to go through your back testing and you're going to look at your statistics. What's your loss rate? What's your winning rate? Okay. There's going to be a high loss rate there. And high, I mean 40, 50, 60%. I don't know what your loss rate is in your strategy, but you should know it because you've done the back testing, right? You're going to look at that loss rate and you're going to accept it. You're going to go, wow, actually, if I take 10 trades, 4 of those are going to be losses, 5 of those are going to be losses, 6 of those are going to be losses. You need to know how many are going to be losses or expect to be losses. And every trade you should be expecting a loss. Now, this helps to regulate your brain when you see the loss because it's expecting it. Okay, the certainty I was talking about. This helps to train your brain. So every time you take a trade, expect it to lose. Because remember, the faster you get through your losses, the faster you're going to get to your winners. If you take 10 trades and 5 of them need to be losses, you got a 50% win rate, you need to have those 5 losses at some stage. The faster you have them, the faster you're going to get your winners. So expect the loss, and this is going to help to train your brain to just be a bit calmer, a bit cooler, not such a crazy person when a loss does show up because you're expecting it. It's really important, this one. Expect the distribution of your strategy, of your win rate, loss rate. This is going to train you to be neutral. Your brain becomes more neutral. Okay, and again, I'm going to keep saying you're training your brain. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to suddenly be tomorrow, it's all fixed. You're going to train your brain because it will slowly calm down. Number 2, you need to create a loss protocol. This is the protocol I want you to follow. 1 loss is normal. 1 loss is normal, 1 loss is neutral because you're also training it on the distribution. You're expecting that loss. 2 losses, you're going to cut your risk by 50%. You're doing this because you need to, you're at high risk of that neutral state starting to escalate into an unneutral, chaotic, panic state. You need to cut that risk by cutting the risk, the dollar amount, okay? It can help to neutralize your brain and feel a bit more safe, but in the event that you're actually going to just escalate here, you'll escalate on a bit of a smaller loss, okay? It's just a safety net on a practical level for your account, okay? And then after the 3rd loss, you stop trading. That's it. You're done. Okay. This is the protocol until you are a controlled, calm trader. Then you can do whatever you like. Okay. You don't have to stick to this protocol forever, but you must implement it. If you want to stop this cycle of blowing your accounts, you need to implement this. Okay, so number 2 is the loss protocol. Now know it. Because you must remember that professionals contain the damage. We're okay with losses, we're okay even with mistakes, but our damage is always contained. It doesn't blow out, it doesn't escalate, it doesn't turn into a tsunami of uncontrolled chaos, losses, and blown accounts. Amateurs start to try to make back the loss. They can't handle a loss, and that's when things get out of control. And that's why you need this protocol, okay? Because it's going to help you to maintain the damage. And number 3, this one's a little bit harder because it's not so practical. It's a bit more deeper reflection, but you need to start doing this work. You need to separate your identity from the outcome, okay? Because at the moment, a huge reason why those losses start to blow out is that with an outcome, your ego is affected and it sends the danger signal to your brain, and then it starts getting out of control and you're trying to make it back because you want to protect this ego. It's quite a complicated psychological situation that's going on. And that's why coaching with someone like me helps you to unpack that very complex psychological situation so that you can actually like get to the core reasons of why, and then you can actually start operating at a different level. So this kind of starts diving into that kind of work. Because when you've done that work, when you've uncovered the real psychological things going on and you've worked through that, you're not going to need these kind of protocols because you're going to be operating at a completely different level. It's a real professional level you're going to be operating at. So you don't need these little protocols and tricks, let's say. But until you do that work, you can start to look at your own identity. Now what's happening is that with amateur traders, so if you're amateur, if you're still blowing out accounts, is that you're associating the outcome with your identity. So if you have a loss, if you have a win, I'm a good trader with a win, and I'm a loser when I have a loss, and the losses start to pile up. I'm a bigger loser, and it causes this cycle of triggers to your brain, sending your brain into panic mode and back to your ego, and it's all interrelated and it's very complex. Okay. Now it's kind of like pulling them apart, outcomes and identity. It's kind of like there's a whole lot of athletes that have gone to the Olympics, the Winter Olympics recently in Italy. And 3 of those in each sport, 3 of those medaled. Okay, there's the winner, the second place, and the third place. Now, technically, there's just one winner. These 2 are actually losers, but they did get medals. And everyone else is a loser. You could look at it that. That's looking at it from an outcomes perspective. Looking at it from an identity perspective, and every single athlete would be looking at it from an identity perspective, and that's kind of why they're at the Olympics. That's why they're at the top of their game, because they don't just see not losing as not winning as I'm a loser. They don't have outcomes-based identity. They are still athletes. They would still see themselves as athletes. They don't go, oh, I didn't win gold, so now I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm the worst athlete in the world. I'm such a loser. They might have moments of disappointment in the if they didn't get their best time, if they didn't if they're expecting to win the gold and they didn't, there'll be disappointment. But they don't walk away going, I'm now no longer an athlete, I'm such a loser. They still see themselves as athletes. They have the identity of an athlete. Win or lose, they're there to compete. That's their identity. I'm an athlete, and so I compete, win or lose. With amateur traders, your identity is tied in, knotted in, a big knot, complicated knot with your outcomes. Every outcome tells you that you're good or you're bad, win or loss, good or bad. Whereas you need to have the identity of a trader, and a trader's identity is to compete in the market, to go into the market with your strategy and compete. You're still a trader, and your identity stays separate to the outcomes. The outcomes are just data. It's just something that happens. Data. And is it mirroring your backtesting? Is your strategy playing out how your backtesting is playing out? But if you cannot separate your identity is as a trader to compete in the market. If you keep associating your identity with outcomes, you never get to this point where you're just competing and the outcomes are data to check against your backtesting, because that data is so messed up, because you've gone and FOMO traded, revenge traded, you've caused this chaotic scene. Therefore, you're not just creating data, outcomes, and testing it. You're not just operating with the identity of a trader. You're taking on your identity from the outcomes, and it's turning into a very complicated melodrama. It's messy, and the first step, obviously implement these protocols, but you must start considering and reflecting on your identity as a trader who is only there to compete in the markets. Your identity is not affected by outcomes. You can be disappointed by outcomes. You can sometimes be disappointed by your performance. That's fine. Be disappointed, but then go and do it again. Just return to your identity as a trader and just trade. Okay. This identity work is something that you need to work on every day, for months and months and months. Because that's where you need to get to. You need to get to the identity of a trader that is just there to compete, that is not blown up emotionally, psychologically every time you have a win or a loss. Okay, winners can also do this to you, can make you feel, look how amazing I am. It's just a win. Okay, your back testing said you would have winners, so you've just done your job and you've got a winner. It's not such a big deal. Same as losses, not such a big deal. It's you're just playing out your strategy. So the third part of this protocol is to every day be working on, reflecting on your identity. Now, of course, come and work with me. We do some really deep work on identity and a lot of other layers and things. If you want to get this work done faster, that's how to do it. And the reason that's the best way to do it is because of that psychological barrier I told you about earlier. It's very hard for us to see reality, to see the truth, because of the how strong our lizard brain is in telling us certain things, certain mistruths to keep us safe. That's the situation. Okay, so just quick one on that identity piece. Look, trading isn't about prediction. It's not about being right. The market actually tests your system for self-regulation. How in control can you stay? How in control can you stay to just be the trader that's there to compete? Just there to compete. You're not there to predict what's going to happen. You're not there to be right. You're just there to compete, to bring your rules in and engage with the market. That's it. It's no more, no less than that. And the market will reward you for self-regulation. And self-regulation comes from self-mastery. That's what it's all about. That's the 90% that's missing. And this is how it works. Okay, so finally, I just want to close with, look, have you noticed anything during this webinar? Have you felt anything? Felt resistance? Have you felt recognition? Have you felt anything? Have you seen a truth? Okay, that is very important feedback for you. That's the kind of awareness, the kind of thinking, reflection you need to start doing. This is the peeling of the onion. You need to start peeling those layers back and going, actually, what is that? What is that? What is that? That's what's going to get you to consistency, to profitability. Okay. Yes, studying the charts, it's fun. Strategies, we all enjoy our time on the charts, but it's 10% of your job. This is your job, to start understanding yourself and to start working on it and start implementing protocols to protect the risk that you as a human cause. Now, finally, I've got a guide that I've made. It's a 5-part guide, PDF guide. It's called Chaos to Consistency. And it's a nice little guide that gets you started on some of this work. If you want that guide, then comment in the comments and I'll send you the link to it. Other than that, thanks for joining. I've really enjoyed this session. And I'm all done. Look at that. Okay, it looks like, I hope the streaming worked well. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. Implement this protocol and let me know in the comments, or you can reach me in lots of different ways. I'm on X, I'm on my own YouTube channel, I'm in CTI's Discord. Look for Coach Marisa. Let me know how it's going, how your implementation of the protocol is going. If you're struggling, if you're seeing changes, if you have questions, get in touch, because I want to help you on your trading journey. I'll see you next week.